little bit after 9 o'clock, but if we can get started, I think. Thank you for joining us today. First, just a couple quick things procedurally. In Lincoln, we have a mask mandate, so thank you for everyone. Please wear your mask. We appreciate it. If you'd like to provide verbal comment, we have a list right here. If you haven't already signed up, there'll be an opportunity at the end to provide additional if you are inspired to do so after listening to everyone else speak. We'll ask everybody to limit their comments to 5 minutes initially. If we have additional time, then we will, at the end, which at this point in time, it looks possible, we will go ahead and invite everyone up in list order again to speak if they'd like to continue to add additional comments. NIFA and DED staff, since this is a public hearing, we want to make sure that you have ample opportunity to share your comments. So we won't answer questions today. What we will do is you provide copies of the written public comment we post them on the website and we share them with our board and all members of the public, as well as written responses from NIFA and DED staff. And so keep an eye on the NIFA.org website, please. And then finally, if you could silence your phones, that would be great. We do have Zoom set up so that people can listen to comments that are made. However, if you're not here, unfortunately, you cannot make a comment. There are some comments coming in via email right now, so you will be able to again see those at NIFA.org. Okay, we will start, and our first speaker today is Kathy Mesner.
How did I draw the straw?
We're going by the list.
Well, you got the wrong paper, I think.
If you don't mind speaking at the middle table, that'd be great. We have good microphones there.
You want this one?
You're right there, you got it.
All right, okay. Well, first of all, I'm Kathy Messner with Messner Development Company. And as you know, we work mostly in the non-metro parts of the state. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have to tell you, and I know this is partially related to COVID, but I was a little bit disappointed that those of us that work in the industry haven't had a chance to interact directly with the board members, but I see at least one board member's here today, so I appreciate it too. Yeah, so thank you for that. I left my glasses over there, so I'm going to have to make this up. The first thing on my list has to do with the emphasis on larger units in the QAP. I just think this is a waste of resources for the state of Nebraska. I can't tell you how many times I've been called out to communities to look at their housing studies, and everybody always says, we need more family housing. And everybody wants that 3, 4, 5 bedroom home for families. When you actually look at the data, what you're finding out is those communities have a lot of affordable family housing, but it's all occupied by seniors or by people who have purchased a lot of houses whenever they've come on the market, and now they're renting them to anybody. So the first-time teacher or the first-time nurse or the first-time quick shop worker or whatever is occupying a 3 or 4 bedroom home in the community because they don't have any place else to go. And in my opinion, until we get, to make matters worse, we have this baby boomer bubble. I'm part of it. And we have a lot more senior citizens in our communities than we have in any other demographic group. So, and in my opinion, until we find options for our seniors, affordable options for our seniors and some of our smaller households, we're never going to be able to free up the affordable housing that we already, family homes that we already have. Doesn't matter if you're in Valentine or York until you build affordable options for these smaller households. We're just not going to have the family homes, and using the tax credit program to emphasize larger units is a bad idea anyway. In most cases, two wage earners in a family will put the family over income for a tax credit unit. And with larger, more expensive units, one wage earner households have a hard time paying even the tax credit rents and the utilities that go with that. So I just think that using plus in this day and age where we're facing these high costs and crazy construction expenses, we're going to use up our tax credits so quickly by incentivizing larger homes that it just is a bad decision for us to be making. So my recommendation is that we get rid of that. We get rid of the 2 points for the family developments. We maintain the 2 points for the senior developments because they have to have some kind of equalizing factor in due to the differential that we see between 2 and 3 bedroom units in the efficiency scoring. The other thing is for us in small communities, I think we need to maintain points for small communities. I like the idea we've gone to a non-metro set aside, but that isn't going to get going to put towns like Fullerton on an even setting with towns like Grand Island out in our neck of the woods.
1.5 minutes left.
How much?
1.5 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. I think we need to maintain those points. I don't like the idea of eliminating points for threshold items because there is a difference in how ready projects are to proceed, and the threshold points help allow projects to show their readiness and help differentiate them from ones that aren't ready. Couple of other things, scoring with CDBGR applications. I think we've got to be able to pull out those extra costs that are added by Davis-Bacon and then do the scoring, because otherwise we're not going to be equal. And I think we need to go back to more efficiency points, just because I think that we overshot the mark. We started funding projects that had no efficiency points, and that's not good. We always need to prioritize stretching our resources as far as possible, making them accessible to all parts of the state, and serving the greatest number of households that we can serve. So,
Thank you,
am I right
Kathy.
on line?
You're at 10 seconds left.
Okay.
Thanks. And as I mentioned, if there's additional time, we can definitely revisit if you have additional comments. Next, we have Chris Lenz, Untitled Development Group.
Oh,
Thank you.
Again, thank you to the board and to the NIFA staff for the opportunity to comment on the QAP. My name is Chris Lenz, and I'm the development director for Excel Development Group for the state of Nebraska. Excel has developed and managed low-income housing tax credits in Nebraska for over 25 years. We currently have 10 projects located in the cities of Lincoln and Omaha, with 344 units under management in both communities. I'd specifically like to address the proposed metro-only areas of high opportunity addition to the tax credit application for the next 2 years. Based on the attached map that I put in, and it's the map off of the website attached to the application, most all of North and South Omaha neighborhoods would receive 0 points out of a potential 4.5 for proposed housing development, either senior or family. This is also true for locations in the downtown Lincoln neighborhoods, which specifically include from 1st Street to 27th and from Van Dorn to the north edge of town. The application does not retain or does retain the ability to obtain 1 point for development located in a qualified census tract. Most all the developers in this room today have lost out on receiving funding by 1 point or less several times, and it hurts. With that being said, the new scoring section is basically driving developers away from areas in our state that need new, safe, and affordable housing. I simply cannot leave 4.5 points on the table by submitting an application in a metro neighborhood that will not receive any of those opportunity points. With this change, I'm being forced to look into the outlying suburbs for a project to be considered in metro. Although I somewhat understand in theory the motivation behind this change, specifically putting affordable housing in neighborhoods with, quote, better schools, better access to jobs, transportation, healthcare, you're basically saying that for the next 2 years, there will be no new affordable housing projects built in North or South Omaha and certain parts of Lincoln. XL Development Group has previously worked with Bishop Joseph Shannon and the Greater St. Paul Church on multiple developments in North Omaha. I'm also currently working with Pastor Ralph Lassiter on the Mount Moriah Baptist Church and received a tax credit award this year for Moriah Manor, a 40-unit senior apartment building located at North 24th and Ohio Streets. This project is located in a QCT and is an integral part of the City of Omaha's Forever North redevelopment plan. As it states right now, that project would get 0 points on your opportunity index. The planning department of the City of Omaha has done a stellar job in planning the revitalization of these neighborhoods, and new and affordable housing is an integral part of those plans.
2 minutes.
I timed this out, we're okay. I have my wife and daughter are teachers, so we've been through this. Now I lost my spot, I want my time back.
You get it back.
The planning department of the City of Omaha has done a stellar job in planning and revitalizing these neighborhoods, and new and affordable housing is an integral part of those plans. The Moriah Manor project was designed with the help of Pastor Lassiter, who specifically wanted to develop a senior project because he knows that seniors want to remain in the neighborhoods that they have called home for the past 50 years. This point change now eliminates that opportunity. The unintended consequences of this point change are numerous. In the high opportunity neighborhoods, I'll be looking at paying for land at a cost 5 to 10 times higher than I would pay elsewhere. If I need to go through the rezoning process, my experience, and I think the experience of a lot of developers here, would tell us that we will undoubtedly face a backlash of NIMBYism in opposition to rezoning. Residents in North and South Omaha and Lincoln are being told that redeveloping their neighborhoods are less important than building new projects in the suburbs. If you're set on leaving this point option in the application, I would ask you to consider the following. 1, raise the QCP points from 1 to 4.5 to offset that change and allow developments to be funded in neighborhoods that need the most housing. 2, raise the points for a senior project from 2 to 4.5 to allow residents to remain in the neighborhoods that they have lived in all their lives. This option would allow the possibility for seniors to have safe, decent, affordable housing while remaining in their own community and still promote family and multifamily developments in those high opportunity neighborhoods in our metro cities. I believe these options still allow NIFA and its board to achieve the goal of locating affordable housing in high opportunity areas and at the same time provide housing for all types of ages and families.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comment. And you were right. Even with your delay, you were right on time. Next, we have Teresa Kyle with White Lotus Group. Thank you, Teresa.
All of my comments are phrased as questions, not with the intention that you answer them now, but it gives you the opportunity to think about, is this a good idea? I have a general comment here about proposing that the qualified allocation plans have measurements in place to monitor all the impacts of change. Sometimes we make changes and we're not going to see the impact until 15, 20 years, even 45 years down the road. So I would suggest that we look at the past to kind of dictate whether we want to make those long-term changes. An example would be, excuse me, computer rooms back in the past were a great idea, but to hold a property for 15 years because it's, part of their application, or 30 years, changes happen. We went from computer rooms to wireless, okay? Part of my question here is, could developments be held hostage to long-term commitments that may cause functional obsolescence? That's something to think about when you're making these long-term changes. I divided mine by sections. The first one is about the housing credit allocation plan for the 4%. And this is also true of the 9%. The cost for professional fees have risen. However, the percentages in the QAP have not. Could a study of professional fees across the state of Nebraska, not any other state of Nebraska, be helpful in determining if these percentages for architect and developer fees can be increased? Okay. Same comment I have for the 9%. We have in the 9%, the competitive submittal and award dates are listed in the housing credit allocation plan. Could we also put the crane in there so that everybody knows those dates, timelines, et cetera? On carryover allocation fee, because of the pandemic, what has happened is it states in there a lot of revocation of credits if we don't meet deadlines. And of course, there's an extension. However, would it not be best to avoid this with the 10% test by giving us what is the section 42 deadline as opposed to NYFA's deadline? If you're a crane application and for some reason you get awarded at the November, December, you only have until June of the following year by NYFA's deadlines to meet that 10% test. Whereas someone who got awarded in the first round has all of the time from the first round until June. So maybe it would be better to avoid some of these issues if we could have that 10% test, the same deadline as the section 42. Compliance and extended use period. Applicants are choosing additional points for longer compliance period or for waiving the qualified contract. My question to you guys is, shouldn't their pro forma show that they are financially feasible? If they're going to choose those points, shouldn't the pro forma show that they can be affordable for 45 years? Okay. This one is a little bit of a confusion for me. If the GP of a development is a nonprofit organization and the development is transferred out of the LLC and to the GP at the end of 15 years for tax purposes, in other words, to get it, not have to pay personal property tax, does the language as written in the application exclude the nonprofit GP from requesting a qualified contract in the future? Because you're transferring it out of the LLC to the GP so that they can get a better tax consequence. Same thing with the right of first refusal. If a nonprofit will be the general partner of an LLC or an LP, are they considered affiliated with a for-profit organization and unable to receive points in the right of first refusal? In other words, I'm a nonprofit, I'm the GP, but I am part of the LLC. I want to offer myself the right of first refusal because I'm a functioning nonprofit organization. Do I lose those points in the right of first refusal because I am affiliated with a for-profit? Family developments, again, I agree with Kathy Mesner, but what I would request is, and I noticed that you're not asking for the whole development, you're just asking for a portion of it. Should we not have, if you're going to keep this, should we not have measurements in place to ensure that 4 or more bedrooms are being utilized by households with 4 or more persons residing in them? Because if you only have 2 persons in a 4-bedroom household, how can you justify giving the 1.5 points for the 4 bedrooms? Because you are not serving, 4, 1.5, 6 points. Okay, you're not serving 6 persons. You may only be serving 2, but in the application, you receive the additional efficiency numbers for that. Okay. Density configuration, with the cost of land rising, is density configuration adding unnecessary cost to a development? You're asking for these additional land for the same development, but land costs have risen. Is that still needed? Okay,
Teresa, I'm sorry, your time is up. We will call you back up to do this.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't give you a warning.
no, that's okay, because the last comment is the same as, it's only the carryover,
Got it.
so
Thank
I'm
you.
fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Rob Woodling with Foundations Development, and I'll try to remember to give you a warning. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Thank you for your time. Rob Woodland, Foundations Development. I'll try and make my comments brief. My first comment is going to be about taking away the threshold points, especially the zoning points. Basically, right now, a development that basically can get a letter from a zoning official that says that the project does not meet current zoning, but all it needs is city council approval. I think you'll run into a situation of projects not getting that city council approval, and even in a time frame without extensions to get that city approval from some jurisdictions, it's going to take longer than that. So I think having some readiness points back in there makes sense. Second comment is about the Crown program. Basically, right now, by removing the Crown program from getting points from right of first refusal, and also not allowing them to get any extended use period. It used to be a balance where you could pick one or the other. Right now, if you do the same single family home project, one Crown, one not, the Crown project is dinged by like 3 points. It just doesn't, no one's going to do it. They're not going to make sense to do anymore. And so I think balancing that back out makes sense. And then the last one, I have one other one here. So on the small community points, I know we're scoring rural versus rural and urban versus urban, but I think what you're going to find especially in the rural areas is, if people have to pick between 50 units in Grand Island and 5 units in Alda 3 miles away, they're going to do 50 units in Grand Island. And so all the rural credits are probably going to go to a Grand Island, a Kearney, a Norfolk. And if that's the intent, then that's fine. But I think by not having those small community points, you're going to see less projects in those smaller rural areas. And then my last comment is about the metro only area of high opportunity. I know this is for metro only, and so my comment is more about the silos of urban being scored against urban and rural being scored against rural. You're basically saying that these metro areas can have these points and the rural can't. And I think the rural silo then can get less points overall, and it's going to make it more challenging for rural areas to get like the home funds or housing trust funds, things like that, because their bucket is just smaller that they can get points from. And also that mapping does cover rural areas. So I think that should probably be widened to cover statewide if that's what we want to do, as opposed to just urban, because I think it makes rural projects more challenging in terms of getting the same number of points as urban. So. Thank you, bonus points for being on this. Thank you.
We'll give you
That's
kudos
right.
and a gold star.
All right.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Ryan Durant.
Might be
Written. Okay.
too long. I don't want to get.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Jake Poppy.
Thank you. Jake Hoppy with Hoppy Development. We provided written comments as well, so I'll be fairly brief. I think there's much to celebrate in this QAP. I think that you have addressed some issues and there are some very interesting and bold choices. I think will be interesting to see the results of some of the experiment around location, but I think it's a laudable effort to try and get out of certain areas that have been where development has been concentrated in the past. So we think that's very interesting and actually something to be celebrated. I understand the concerns of folks who are developing some of those communities and understand the concern around sort of concentrated development efforts that are happening in Omaha specifically, but probably Omaha and Lincoln. Some of the concerns we had are echoed in some of the other comments. Housing density points. We do continue to believe that that is kind of at odds with a lot of the contemporary suburban development or suburban and urban development that has been celebrated by the NIFA board, like missing middle, and that it does impose a cost and just design constraint, unnecessary design constraint that we're not sure, from our perspective, has any evidence-based outcome in the quality of the units or resident experience. Second is supportive services. We're concerned about some of the direction, the prescriptive nature of some of the supportive services, especially when you're looking in communities, rural communities that don't have the same access to service providers that you have in urban communities, where meeting those goals, especially if you were to look at a train application, meeting the 5 supportive services in exactly those specifically defined ways can be especially challenging. And then I think we're also concerned about the elimination of the small community points. I think looking at this and kind of holistically, the motivation to go into or the ability to serve a small community, I think you're just going to see a high concentration of the urban or the rural projects be concentrated at a handful of different rural communities. So we had much more to say and in depth in the written comments, so I'll keep it brief here and leave it at that. Oh, sorry. The final piece, actually the most important thing I got up here to say was the deadline on the 4% AHTC is so quick that my concern is you're not going to have any projects that are actually responding to this QAP. You guys have made a bold set of changes and are presenting a very different set of policy goals. The only projects that could meet, assuming that this gets adopted October 29th, the only projects that could get assembled in that 6-week period between October 29th and December 10th would be ones that are already responding to past QAPs. Given the amount of change in kind of the boldness of what you guys are prescribing, even an extra 6 weeks would enable projects to come forward that are responding to what you're asking for here. So we would ask for additional time, even if quite limited, to put projects together that are meeting what you guys are outlining. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. You get a gold star also.
So, Rob got one.
I don't have good enough memory to remember what I said just a few minutes ago, so. Next we have Fred Hoppy.
I'm gonna be real brief because Jake's often my mouthpiece. Fred Hoppy, Hoppy Development. I just want to make a kind of a holistic comment that I believe the goal of low-income housing should be to integrate it in communities and to put low-income housing in neighborhoods of market rate housing, and to make neighborhoods and make LIHTC a part of those neighborhoods. This QAP has taken a pretty big step to go there, but really is not responsive to, or at least it does not reward with points putting LIHTC projects into existing neighborhoods of market rate very well. The judgment points for 4.5 are kind of neighborhood quality points, which sort of goes there, but it really doesn't. So there's no credit for putting an LIHTC project a block and a half from the neighborhood park. Rather, you got to put your own park in. Well, it's expensive and duplicative, and to make all those things or emphasize or give points for those things only if they're exclusive to your low-income housing tenants seems to defeat the purpose of integration of low-income with market rate neighborhoods. I want my low-income tenants to look like every other tenant in the neighborhood, not having to play on a segregated playground. So It's a holistic comment. It is not directed at specific statements to put in there. But when you look at the QAP, I think you ought to be tailoring some of the amenities to proximity, not to exclusivity. And so we can make housing a part of a neighborhood and get rewarded for it. And I think that's much more important than shoving all our LIHTC and QAPs distressed neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Gold star also. Okay. We don't have anyone else left on the list. Is there anyone who would like to speak that did not have an opportunity to sign up?
Thanks, guys. Wayne Mortensen, NeighborWorks Lincoln. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of comments that have been said by others. The density bonuses are incentivizing suburbanization of these units at a time when environmental concerns and land values, especially in our metro areas, I work exclusively in the Lincoln community, are as high as they've ever been. And so in order to defray those land costs and to make the maximal opportunity for low-income residents, 12 units per acre is not sufficient to match the opportunities that are available to us. In terms of sustainability, 12 units per acre is the baseline of what transit planners would suggest is the minimum density to maintain consistent and regular transit service to a community. And so by penalizing projects that are lower or that are over 12, we're essentially telling developers that transit is not important, that sustainable operation is not important, and that urban communities are not worthy of those considerations. And so I'm hopeful that those density bonuses will be revisited. The only other comment I'd like to share is not for this QAP, but hopefully future. I would love for NIFA to look at best practices from other states relative to their green building standards and adopt a more universally adopted set of metrics, such as enterprise green communities. There is a whole host of considerations and exploration that have gone into those considerations. And by incorporating those instead of kind of ad hoc sustainability standards that are defined by the powers that be at NIFA, we're able to kind of systematize tax credits in Nebraska in a way that allows other regional and national developers to understand what the requirements are coming in and to be then accountable for a wider array of sustainable economic, environmental, and social factors. My third and final comment is really just the consideration of additional low-income housing in low and moderate income neighborhoods. We work almost exclusively in those neighborhoods, so we do rehabilitation work throughout the city of Lincoln. Those neighborhoods need low-income housing too. The housing in Lincoln is quickly deteriorating. It's quickly becoming obsolete in terms of age and constructive year built. And so additional new low-income units in low-income neighborhoods is a pressing need for the Lincoln community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Can we go back?
Definitely. Let me just run through. Kathy, do you have anything else? You can just run through the list if you don't mind.
Not at the moment.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, just two things to address, and I'll get back up there.
Yeah, sorry. We want to make sure everyone online can hear.
Just two comments to make. One, if we could do a little bit better job of explaining the eligible home applicants definition of what the nonprofits are. It's pretty big. I think it just says local nonprofit. Is that eliminating some of our regional nonprofits that cover multi-counties? I mean, it would just be nice to have that defined on what that is and who's eligible. And then on the zoning issues, I agree on the project readiness concerns. Just an example, I had a project application from North Platte. An entire section of land was being redeveloped. There's currently multifamily housing going on in that. The city is willing to continue to change that, but the gentleman that owns the land is leaving it ag because it's lower taxes. And, you know, he doesn't want to have to rezone it if it doesn't, you know, if the section does not finish. So getting proper zoning is becoming harder and harder in the rural areas. A lot of the land that we're working with is ag, to be honest, or zone something other than a multifamily. And then we end up, you know, either forcing or asking the seller to rezone it prior to our application, which sometimes is not feasible. I understand, you know, the possibility of not getting it rezoned, but I think a lot of the developers that have been doing this long enough know where to go, what type of questions to ask to see that happens. I just, like I said, it's mainly for the rural areas. It's just getting harder and harder to find properly zoned property for project.
Thank you. Teresa?
Actually, I do after somebody else's comment. I'll be brief. The biggest comment that I have regarding green standards is I think we really need to weigh the cost of what the green standard is going to add to the property, the lifespan of what that green is going to cost, and what the cost to rehab whatever that green standard is. One of the things I'm thinking is geothermal. And then does it really add value to the property? Not only to the tenant, but does it add value to the developer? Because one thing is, and something that we're working through on a project of mine, you know, you might add a green standard, but to keep that green standard continuously, is that actually providing affordable housing? Because we all know whatever cost you bring to us, if we have to have a higher debt on our property, we're going to pass that on to the tenant because there's only so many credits. There's only so much debt a property can handle. And so will that green standard transfer into a higher rent just to make these financially feasible? That's all I ask is we look at the whole, I'm big into green. If you ask my family, then it makes them crazy. But I'm also into green that keeps the properties affordable. Thank you.
Too brief last time. So just to go back, so I made the argument about the metro only points for the data diversity kids. And I guess now I'm going to make a moral argument against how this is set up now. When I read this, it's not diversity data kids or data diversity urban kids.org. It's datadiversitykids.org is the website. And the question I wrote down is why is the opportunity of rural children less valuable to the state than that of urban children? And right now, we're saying that with this point system, we're saying that urban children's future is not equal to that of rural children's future. And so I believe that this should cover the entire state if we're going to do it. So.
Ryan, you're still good?
Yeah.
Okay. Jake, anything additional? Fred, anything? Oh, Brent?
Just real quick, Brent Williams with Excel Development Group. I just want to talk about the high opportunity points again and just reiterate, the need, and Kathy mentioned it earlier, as us baby boomers continue to age, the need for the senior housing, and seniors don't want to move out of the neighborhoods they're in whatsoever. Chris was right. As developers, we chase points because the point system is such that one point makes all the difference in getting funded or not funded. So in the effort to kind of help Chris, I did talk to a few of the, in Lincoln here anyway, the land developers in South Lincoln and East Lincoln, the ones who actually have the land and are developing the land for the new construction housing And I talked to them about the willingness to sell land to a light tech project. And I pretty much got laughed at and said, we're selling $100,000 lots. And you want us to put a low-income housing tax product out here. It says it just devalues everything we're doing. Unfortunately, I mean, I like the concept behind the high opportunity areas in theory, but in practicality, I just want to see out there what the land developers would say. And I only checked Lincoln, I haven't checked Omaha yet, but the ones I know in Lincoln, they just kind of said, if you were the housing authority got one done because they were the first development in that area. And then everything came afterwards. But in the currently being developed areas, the current housing is already going on. They said there's no way they're going to sell land. And no, I'm not going to use anybody's name because I didn't want to. But they're not going to sell land. And if they did, it'd be at an outrageous price. But they basically said no. There isn't a price that they would sell that land to go build it south in currently existing new construction areas to just kind of set and fit in with what all is being built right now. So just kind of want to make that, and I'm sure with your background, you have those same abilities to talk to people out there, but that's behind the scenes, that's the story anyway.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Matt.
Anyone else?
Go through the list again.
Okay, Jake, go ahead, and then we'll go through the list again.
Well, I just thought I'd make a quick comment because we are very interested in trying to meet the requirements around high opportunity areas. And it's something that has come up in a project we've done where there was a lot of concern about over concentrating housing in a high poverty neighborhood, over concentrating low income housing in a high poverty neighborhood. And I think what some of the points that Brent's making up could also be arguments for why you do need something sort of bold in order to incentivize the creativity to go find sites in some of these non-traditional neighborhoods for low-income housing. I say that with the caveat that there is a lot of good work that is going on in the redevelopment of some of these neighborhoods, and I don't want to ignore the opportunity to put affordable housing alongside those redevelopment efforts. But if you're going to get housing outside of traditional areas, it's going to require a bold set of rethinking about how the QAP prioritizes location. So I just looked at.
Thank you. Kathy?
I just want to make a quick comment on this idea of the green standards and just how we're thinking about some, and I'm using that as an example, but how we're thinking of some of the innovative things that may be going on in with housing at this time. There's going to be a time when if we don't move the dial on renewable energy, that many of our tenants are going to be facing utility bills that rival their rents. And so I'm using this as an example. We need to find a way in our QAP to incentivize ways for our tenants to take advantage of like renewable energy sources. We've developed a couple of subdivisions in communities where they have solar farms, for instance, where you can invest in the solar farm and get energy credit back on your utility bill every month. Obviously, there's not money in the operating budget for doing that, but there may be other sources of funding that can be brought to the table that help buy into those kinds of programs. That's just one example of an innovation that is that would be very helpful to our low-income tenants. And we need to be able to figure out some kind of incentive categories within our QAP, where if we're able to pull those things together, the projects get credit for it. Because after all, you know, we're in this business to provide housing and heat and air conditioning and other services to our tenants. And if we can, and I think sometimes we think too much within our own boxes about how we do things, and we don't think in terms of some of the other new things and some of the other available things that are out there, and how we could bring programs together with the tax credit program. And if we're able to do some of that stuff, I think that clearly ought to be an incentive within the QAP.
Thank you. Additional comment? Clerk, please come up.
Thank you. I am Bishop Joseph L. Shannon Sr., North Omaha pastor for the last 36 years. I've had the opportunity to work with affordable housing for seniors, and currently we are part of the Shannon Heights Affordable Senior Housing Project. I came today not to speak to the logistics of what developers may speak to, but to represent the citizens of North Omaha. When we did that project down there off of between 16th and 20th and Locust, the citizens that had lived in North Omaha for many, many years and their properties deteriorating, basically looking for some place to go, trying their very best to pass on these properties to their children to the best of their abilities with no avail. So they're left to try to stay in these properties that are either unaffordable, unrepairable, and they're between 60, 65 and older. And certainly when we did that, they were so grateful for the fact that there was opportunities for them to have some type of housing without trying to find a way to relocate or to locate to other parts of the city. Most of those folks do not want to move to West Omaha. It's just not in their social network. Their churches are there, their families are there, and they're just used to being where they were raised. And if anyone's familiar with North Omaha, many of the citizens that live there now came from various parts of the South to be a part of the packing house industry. And those industries obviously dissolved, and it left them with a generation of folks that really could not afford the kind of dollars that it would cost to keep those properties up. I would say representing these folks who I've talked to for so many years, to have these points eradicated would be a disaster when there's such a large need. And I'm sensitive to what everyone says about the need for other affordable housing in other areas, but I came to represent these wonderful people who would benefit tremendously from more affordable senior housing in North Omaha. And of course, there is not enough now, and there is a need for so much more. So I would say to the board, please rethink the reduction or the eradication of these points that will help us do what is so needed in North Omaha. And these citizens look to us as leaders to be able to speak for them. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Any additional comment? Okay, well, just a quick overview again. We will compile all of the public comments, the written, what we've received today, and that will be provided on our website. It will likely be in a couple different places, but you will on the information and document page of the low income housing tax credit, there is a whole section that talks about the 2022-23 QAP draft items. So we're putting it all there, but then again, we usually set it up, you can find it multiple places. One final note is there has been some changes to our board schedule. We will have our October board meeting on the 29th of October. And then we will have our December board meeting on December 10th. So that's different than the previously published schedule. Anything else before we close the meeting?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, we really appreciate you coming and giving us comments, because as you know, as we're trying to put together a QAP, what we know is we don't have enough, you know, there are not enough tax credits to fund all the projects that really need funded. And we can look, you know, I know there's a severe need for senior housing and that there's a severe need to help children in poverty get into high opportunity areas, and being able to balance those two things is important. And the comments that you've made today help us to try to figure that out. This QAP is not going to be perfect. And we know that. Our goal is to make it more impactful in the areas that the board has said are important. And we know that the board believes senior housing is important. The board believes opportunity for families is important. So we'll do our best to tweak this based on the comments that you've made. And just know that, you know, this is an ongoing process, right? So whatever this QAP is, we'll look at it, we'll continue to evolve it. But this is a public policy document. And thank you for being here to help us talk about what that public policy should be. So thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you. And thanks to those of you who have reached out to get clarification and additional information. We do appreciate all of you very much. So with that, we will close the meeting. Thank you all.
Like that. Maybe I'll take my camera out and draw some. How you doing, Chris? Good, how are you?
What's up, Jake?
Fine.
How are you?
You've been going to the volleyball game? Oh, yeah, we've gone to a few, yeah. Good.